my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we are going to take a fully spoilerly look at Kaiju number 8, Chapter 80. Now, before we get into the spoilers, I have to ask, what is Matsumoto's relationship with the creator of Black Clover? Because this chapter is either giving Black Clover a playful jab, or else is brutally mocking it, and for the life of me, I can't tell which. If you know, you know. If you don't, I explained it in my spoiler-free video, but seriously, leave a comment below this video telling me what you think. Is Matsumoto on good terms or bad terms with the creator of Black Clover? Because, well, I am about to jump. What am I talking about? Again, go look at the spoiler-free version of the video, but I am about to jump feet first into spoilers. So if you don't want any for Chapter 80, you should click away now. If you like, you can go check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and pretty much wherever books are sold. Let's not bury the lead. As some of my fellow YouTubers suspected, Kaiju number 15 has psychic powers. Back when she first showed up at Hachiko Intersection, someone, I can't recall who exactly, suggested psychic ability. The visuals alone on Kaiju number 15 hinted at that. All that brain matter bulging out of a protective cranial cavity is universal shorthand for this being can mess you up with their mind. So, of course, just as Kikoru masters the full speed potential of her mother and combines it with the raw power of her father and brings the axe of justice slamming into the villain, all of that, all of her blood, sweat, and tears, it's all rendered pointless when Kaiju number 15 sidesteps that and breaks out super mushroom powers and a psychic attack. Now, I kind of want to call this a plot twist because I didn't see this coming in the moment, or rather, I hadn't thought about the greatest threat to the defense force that Kaiju number 9 poses since way back in chapter 50-ish, over 20 chapters ago. Because this big reveal is really no reveal at all. We all knew it was coming. You see, on the forums and YouTube videos, you can go back and see the conversation going on after Chapter 50. Director General Iso Shinomiya had been absorbed by Kaiju number 9, granting number 9 all the knowledge of the Defense Force and its officers held by its highest ranking officer, including but not limited to the most intimate possible knowledge of his daughter's psychological weaknesses and abilities. Back then, we were discussing how the only way to battle this power Kaiju number 9 now has is to deliberately switch up the combatants. Clearly, Kaiju number 15 was crafted to be a perfect foil to Kikoru. 15's distributed body can protect her core, not by shielding it from the unspeakable power of Kikoru's attacks. That's why 15 has so much less mass than all of her siblings, but by creating a constantly moving target. So no matter where Kikoru strikes with the axe, Kaiju number 15 just has to shuffle the core into a different position, much like Kaiju number 10 did when Mina was blasting him with that cannon, but on a much grander level. So Kaiju number 15's defense is tailored specifically to resist Kikoru's raw power and strength. And Kaiju number 50's offensive abilities are tailored to get around Kikoru's speed that she inherited from her mother. I am reminded of one of the old legends of Thor and Loki. And now I'm talking the OG gods of Nordic mythology, small g gods, not the Marvel versions. But in this legend, the deific duo is hanging out with a new friend who challenges them to various feats of strength at a party. Thor is challenged to drink a giant flagon of wine, and Loki is challenged to an eating contest, which they both lose roundly because their host is a wizard who has chosen physical manifestations of elemental forces for them to oppose. Loki is eating against a wildfire, and Thor is attempting to drink the North Sea dry. much as Kaiju number 9 has set these elemental kaiju against the best the Defense 4 has to offer. Now, in the legend, Thor and Loki happen to have a mortal, we'll call him a friend for simplicity's sake, with them who participated in their party games via a foot race, which foot race he lost to the physical manifestation of thought, because the only thing that can outspeed a speedster are the thoughts of a speedster, and that because, of course, action must follow thought. And that is the very concept that Matsumoto is using here. Kikoru has driven herself to perfect her body in both speed and power, some things she has largely succeeded at, but in that process, she left one gaping weakness: her thoughts. From her very first fight with Kaiju number 9, she has been haunted by the twin holes in her heart, the loss of her mother and the emotional loss of her father. Now, this is far, far from being Kikoru's fault. No child can be held responsible for what their parents failed to give them. However, it is Kikoru who is left to deal with this in the moment that we see here in this battle. She has a gaping weakness left in her psyche by the absence of both her father and her mother. Had Hikari lived, or had Iso seen to her heart as well as her body in training, that gaping, desperate need for approval would have been filled a long time ago. It still would have been there. All of us humans crave validation and have that weakness. It's why we can relate to it so strongly. However, it would have been exponentially harder for Kaiju number 15 to immobilize Kikoru so effectively if Kikoru had had a few more years of parental approval before being thrown to the wolves of academic achievement for her mental stability. This is, simply put, as much as we love him, Iso's failure on every level, but Kikoru is the one left having to deal with it in the moment, as I said. Now, I think we can assume that Kikoru isn't going to get out of this on her own at this point, and I see two possible ways to save her based on the story so far. Option 1, let's call it the physical support option, is simply Reno, her perfectly complementary battle style Nakama. His ability to use the number 6 weapon wasn't something Iso had access to, so Kaiju number 9 can't really have a defense built up against it, making Reno the Defense Force's most powerful backup choice at this point. Added to this, when you have spreading moving filaments like Kaiju number 15 is dealing out, freezing them and the surface they are on is your best bet. Take the classic example of gum in your hair. If you get gum in your hair, there's no way you're getting all those gummy filaments out of it, unless you can turn them brittle by freezing it. And freezing all of Kaiju number 15's connection would no doubt be the best way forward for a physical rescue of Kikoru. Then you can have Reno's own support, Iharu, physically jump in, pull the future linchpin of the Defense Force out of danger, leaving a highly damaged Kaiju number 15, because with tendril abilities, there is no possible way that what we saw was Kaiju number 15's true or only core. There's no way that Kaiju number 15 doesn't have multiple cores spread out under the city by this point. So that's option 1. Physically pull Kikoru's fat out of the fire, get her back to base, and let her lick her gaping psychological wounds, which will take her more than a little time to recover from. But then we have option 2. This is what I'm going to call the spiritual support option, and it's Kafka. Yeah, it's Kafka. Of course, he can't risk revealing his Kaiju number 8 body at this point, but he doesn't need to, because Kafka's support of Kikoru was never on the same physical level that Reno's was. As a matter of fact, Kafka's first act of support for her ever was to drop his Kaiju number 8 transformation so he could smile down at her, to give her the praise she so desperately needs to fill that hole inside of her. In that original moment of their relationship, Kafka offered her the praise, the love of a brother. Now, that can't replace the praise and love of a father, but it could definitely could give Kikoru a strong psychological reaction. May I direct your attention back to the mid-teens chapters? You may remember way back when Kafka and Kikoru went on their first sortie against the Kaiju with the 3rd Division. Kafka got knocked off his feet due to his arrogance, and Kikoru destroyed that first fungal Kaiju. Kafka praises her, and she brushed off his praise like it was nothing. But then we spend a whole nother panel with Okanogi helpfully noting that Kikoru's heart rate has suddenly spiked, and Kikoru yelps for Okanogi to shut up, she didn't need that update. So, there is no doubt that Kafka's words alone, specifically his praise, is something that Kikoru doesn't just value. It is something that she responds to on a very physical level. Kafka stepped into her life and in no small way was filling her father's shoes in her heart even before her father was taken from her. So we might get to see Kafka pull off a spiritual rescue in the same way that Iharu did for Reno. Remember, Kafka could use his words to break through Kaiju number 15's barriers, the same way that Iharu used his words to break through number 6's barriers. In fact, I think it's pretty obvious in retrospect that Kikoru's sudden 20% jump in power during battle wasn't a miraculous show of her willpower, but that same mental breakdown that Reno experienced in training with Kaiju number 6. Which means that her breakdown is as much due to Kurusu and Okanagi not recognizing that the sudden uptick in suit power wasn't a good thing. Perhaps we are going to get to see those two properly dressed down over this failure to support. That would be another delicious failure of the Shinamaya family for Kurusu to bear. Anyway, this was a well set up chapter with elements from all the way back in chapters 1 and 4 spiraling forward to provide critical support. From Kafka's general tendency to offer moral support to everyone around him, to Kikoru's desperate need for approval, it's all coming together in this one battle. And this is only the first battle, remember that. While this is happening, the other warriors are facing off against their own carefully crafted opponents. Captain Jin Narumi is facing off against the water-type Kaiju, and Captain Narumi's power is all about predicting movements via clear electrical signals. And there's nothing more unpredictable than water, and nothing anyone who's done the hydrostatics section of physics can tell you that. And nothing messes with electrical signals quite like salt water does. If that whale can electrify the salt water around it even slightly, it can effectively blind weapon number 1. Mina's weakness is so obviously glaring, it's hardly worth mentioning. Mina is a glass cannon. Sure, she could sink a battleship from 15 miles away, but she has no real mobility. If the target isn't in a direct or at least parabolic line of fire, she can't hit it. If the target has any agility, she can't hit it without Vice Captain Hoshina there to slow it down for her. And using any of her more mobile weapons, which allows her that mobility, profoundly restricts her power. Meanwhile, the ever-versatile Vice Captain Hoshina, who should be backing her up, is being forced to go up against a brutally powerful enemy in Kaiju number 12 with a partner who is going to insist on not using Hoshina's greatest strength of evasion. The remaining two warriors, they simply don't have the same stopping power as their captains. So, that is the situation. What do you think, my wonderful viewers? Please tell me in the comments where you think the story is going. Are we really going to see all 5 battles play out in the same loving detail that Kikoru's has? Is it Reno and his physical power, or Kafka and his spiritual support, or some secret third option that's going to provide Kikoru's shonen plot armor? Leave a comment below telling me what your theories are. I really do want to hear them. After that, hit the like and subscribe button, and go check out the links below the video to check out my science fiction book of human absurdity, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.